G'day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Dyl Friends. Guess what? We have a new little mini-series that is going through Dyl Friends over the next 8 weeks, taking place of our guest episodes. And yeah, been really excited about this one, catching up with some old friends, having a chat, seeing what's transpired over the last 2 to 3 years. And I think it's going to be really special. It's something that we've been wanting to do for a long time. And we've teamed up with our incredible friends at Dove Men+Care with this season. And we're going to be catching back up with some mates, having a chat, see what's transpired, and promoting you guys to do the same thing. Catch back up with friends, highlight the importance of checking in on mates you haven't spoken to for a while, and also playing on that mentality and that ideology, I suppose, of full credit to the boys. We hear it a lot, but we want to take it one step further with this series and actually unpack what that means, how important it is to have good people in your corner, surrounding yourself with good people, and actually give some credit to some people in our lives and the guest lives and your lives that have had massive impacts on ourselves that have got us to where we are today. So really excited for this. We'll be catching up with some old guests. As I've said, we've got Matt de Boer on today, which I would think would be one of the most guaranteed, one of the most requested guests to get back on. We're catching up with Jeremy Cameron, Sam Doherty, Paddy McCartan, to name a few, but we'll keep that in the loop. But hey, guess what? The way we're going to be starting this is actually having a bit of a debrief with two of my good compadres, my homie dogs, my friends, Sammy Bonds and Darcy Parko. How are we, boys?
Good. I'm excited for this little series.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the nickname.
No, you like that one?
Oh, God.
Good to see Sammy back in the chair.
Yeah, he's nervous already. He's just punched the mic. It's been a while between drinks of you on the...
I'm nervous. Yeah, I'm quite nervous.
Hey, as I mentioned, guys, full credit to the team at Dove Men+Care for showing care as sponsors of this podcast and this little mini-series. As I said, it's something that we've been wanting to do for a while. Dove also have an incredible mission, I suppose, to be highlighting men's mental health and getting around that. So when we knew that we're going to be partnering up with Dove, this couldn't have been a better partner to go with on this, because it is super aligned on our values and heading forward. So very thankful for that. But you guys excited?
I am, and I use Dove. I like Dove.
We all use Dove.
It's a great brand at the
because
supermarket.
you smell a little bit at the office sometimes. So we've had to bring in some Dove for you, actually, because it is
just a regular amount.
It's just normal body odor, and it's extra fresh. Obviously, Dove Men+Care Advanced.
72-hour protection.
Yeah. So do you only use that every 2 days or 3 days?
4. I should start using it every 3.
Yeah, that's why.
I got the hours mixed up.
Yeah, there you go. It actually does last that long, but it is better to apply it a bit more.
Yeah, that's a long time.
It is.
What could you do in 3 days? That's a camping trip.
Oh, mate.
I'd probably apply again on a camping trip.
Hang out with the family.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Bit of family time.
Yeah, a bit of family time. So what's cool about this is, obviously, we've got the new and we've got the old, in new being Darcy, somewhat new, for this series.
Yeah.
And Sammy as the old, who's been there since the beginning. We call it BP here, before podcasts.
What episode did you come into the scene? Or were you from the get-go?
I came in
what was your first one?
Probably around 40 episodes in. So like maybe just to start of the second season or something.
No, I reckon
say
you're
years-wise.
Yeah.
I reckon one of the first podcasts I did was maybe Matt Rowell or something.
Really?
And I remember he got lots and lots of hits.
Went massive.
Yeah.
Massive on YouTube, actually.
Yeah. And I remember organising that with the media manager at Gold Coast, and I was like, you know what, I reckon this is going to be big. But
Yeah.
it was Dyl's idea to get him on.
It was when Matty Rowell, well, not that he isn't now, but it was when he was fucking breaking it.
Yeah, I was going to say, had he shown something, or were you like, I can see something in this?
No,
Nah,
it was actually huge that we got him on, because it was like right after he had those first 3 games where he was everywhere.
Yeah, like everywhere.
We should
Cult.
get him back on.
Absolutely everywhere. No, we definitely should.
Cult status.
This series, as I said, is all about checking back in with mates, showing care. And I suppose there's 2 parts. There's many parts, but there's 2 parts I want to talk about today before we sort of get into chatting about Matty de Boer and what we're going to chat with him about when we do the podcast. So we'll open these shows with a little bit of a intro about the episodes and what the care is. And also our Dove Men Plus hotline is open as well, which you can head to the link in the show notes and share your full credit to the boys' story. So as a part of this, we'll be asking the guest who their full credit to the boys or full credit to anyone has been in their life over the last sort of couple of years that has helped them get to where they've been to. And they've all gone through, it's so crazy, like even myself reflecting over the last sort of 2 to 3 years, where they were when we did the podcast, and we'll reflect on a few of those points, but then where they are now and what's transpired. You look at some of those guys we've spoken about, both incredible things, but also some hardship as well. I think of Sam Doherty. The first time we ever had him on the pod, a week after he did his first ACL, he then went on to unfortunately have a couple of bouts of cancer, another ACL, became a father. Nearly came back and became nearly an All-Australian in his first. So there's just so much shit that we haven't really spoken to him about for a long time. So chat to him about that, and who supported him through that time, and we'll really dig into that because we do want to show the importance of friends and actually letting them know as well. Matt de Boer is one that we'll chat to very, very shortly, and this will be this episode today. But since we spoke to him, he was on the Giants list. He's now gone on to become a dad himself. He's founded Athletic Ventures. He's joined the AFL Commission. So there's been a lot of things sort of transpire over those little bits. So it'd be good to check in and see who's been helping out. Also, guys, as a part of this mini-series, we are doing something pretty bloody awesome. This is really cool, and it's something where I'm really, really pumped to get the community back involved with this and actually make some people call up, tell their stories, and they're actually got a chance to win something pretty cool too. So we've got a Dove Men+Care hotline. It's open now. Head to the link in the show notes and share your full credit to the boys' story. So this story can be something where someone's done something for you. It could be big, it could be small. It might have been small in their stature, but for you, it actually meant a lot. You can call up and tell the show. We encourage you to send in a voice message, and we'll be giving away $5,000 each week over 7 weeks.
Each week?
$35,000 thanks to our friends at Dove Men+Care.
Wow.
To promote looking after your mates, giving full credit to the boys, and strengthening friendships. That's what it's all about. Like, genuinely honoured to be teaming up with Dove Men+Care on this, and really, really excited.
Can we enter?
No.
Okay.
Nah, legalities-wise, we cannot enter. I can, but you guys can't, weirdly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to... full credit to you.
Well, yeah, you could do that. That'd be nice. Anyway,
what about Darren Parkinson?
Darren's a good dude. But we're really excited about that. So as I said, for the next sort of first 2 episodes, we're just warming into it and getting it done. But after that, for the next 7, we'll be giving away $5,000 each episode. We'll debrief it at the start, have a chat to the person that sends in their note, get their story, then chat to our guest about their journey and also... their full credit story as well, which is really cool.
Are we going to hear about where you were at that time as well?
Yeah. What, just in life?
Yeah, in life. It's quite interesting.
I remember this Matt de Boer one, 1st of June 2021. That was COVID.
Yes.
So I remember...
Second round, wasn't it?
It was a second round. I remember being in my kitchen dining room at that time, and I remember... Well, I look back, and... It's one of those ones where I was almost hoping this episode didn't go that well because I had one of the worst fucking haircuts of all time.
That was top of my list of things to bring up.
Oh my God. I remember looking at it and I was wearing like the worst kit, worst haircut, and the episode just went viral and I was like, man, I haven't even been able to leave the house to get a haircut. Like, I just look like a piece of shit.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
That was a long time ago. It's probably 3 months or so before we even looked at this place for the first time. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I reckon. It was like way before we'd done really anything. So it was before Producey, before Clubby Sports, before all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And what were you doing? Oh, it was COVID. So could you even help?
I was working somewhere else, but I was facilitating that record
we're all just
online.
on like 6-way Zooms all the time.
Yeah. So I'd set it up and then Dyl would come in and I'd have to explain to every person how to like set up because they had to record it on their end.
Yeah,
and you'd often get people like messing up their record. So that was a funny time.
I'm just looking at your haircut.
Oh, don't.
Back to the
I feel like you might have made the right call going a bit shorter.
Yeah.
You look good now.
Oh, look, I look better than that. It was like one of those things. It was before I realised that that when you have a high hairline, the longer your hair is, the worse it looks. So I think I realised quite quickly you just got to get it short and just embrace it.
Beautiful.
But yeah, that's something I've learned in those last sort of couple of years, which has been really exciting.
So if we go back to Matty de Boer,
yeah,
what were a couple of things that you remember from that chat that stood out to you?
It's a really interesting one because nothing stands out to me because I know this guy, and like the episode was incredible, but I wasn't surprised at how good it was, if that makes sense. Because like what he was like on that show is like how he is 101% of the time. Like, I'm not even going to say I don't know if this guy has off days, like, to be completely honest. He's just a supreme operator. He's incredibly consistent, motivated, driven, guy, and it was so cool to, I suppose, showcase that to the audience because he'd probably never really done anything like that before, which I wasn't nervous about. I knew he'd dominate. But yeah, the biggest thing's obviously the player A, player B example, which let's have a listen to that now.
I'm really fortunate to have, mentors, across my journey, and, I'll touch on a couple of them and see if you can guess who they are. So, player A, fought his way onto a list, is, regarded as one of the hardest working players that there is, worked on all his areas of, deficiency, was in leadership group, in his third year, continued to work on everything, played finals 75% of the time, was a best clubman award winner, joined a new club on the rise, was in the leadership group there in his second year, and then ultimately became one of the sort of most consistent performers and a loved teammate. So there's that guy. Another one of my mentors is player B, and player B was rookie listed, undrafted, bit of a scrapper, really fortunate to get a game at all through someone else's injury, sort of hung around, ultimately got delisted by a club, joined another club, as a depth player, hung around for a bit longer and, never really achieved a hell of a lot, so there's two mentors there. Do you know who they are?
Well, I was going to say Alex Silvani sounds like the first one.
Nah, so they're actually both me. And I
was going to say the second one sounds like you, but I was like, okay, that's very good. I really like that.
Yeah, so they're both me. And I guess the lesson there is it's all about who you choose to be. And I choose to be player A. And then that really helps serve me and fulfills my, propels my next steps there. So in Elite Habits, when you're forming it, how do you see yourself? And I don't say that to be arrogant at all. Like, I hope your listeners don't interpret it that way. I really just challenge them to think about what's your internal narrative and is that propelling you towards where you want to go? Because Elite Habits, like I touched on before, like we're inherently lazy. You need to have the purpose and the motivation to do so, but it becomes down to what's your identity, like I've touched on, and what's your self-narrative so that it serves you to fulfill your next step, because that'll take you ultimately to where you want to go.
Man, I've just had a mind-blowing moment there. You've really opened something up for me. That was unbelievable the way you did that. That's so good.
So I'll be happy.
So there you have it. I'm pretty pumped to see if that's what he had 3 years ago. Let's see what he has for us in today's episode.
I wonder if he's hunted down any more thieves.
Yeah,
that'll be interesting.
That was again my probably another thing that was just one of the funniest bloody stories of all time. And I feel like too, I don't know this, and we'll find this with a couple of the players, right? There's some stories from these guys that we've told on the podcast before that are great stories, nothing bad about them, but I reckon they've been told at about 70% because they were on AFL lists. I think there's about 30% more to some of the stories that throughout these series, there's one that sticks out in my mind with Jeremy Cameron. We'll get to that when that episode comes up. But yeah, I think there's some more to these stories that maybe we've had to hold off early in the days, but now it's promoted to sort of, get it out there a bit. Hey, before we get into it, guys, because we are promoting, checking in with their mates, giving full credit to everyone, and we'll be doing this consistently, this chat throughout, so we don't have to do it today, but has it made you guys think internally about, people in your lives that you obviously have relationships with, you're friends with, but you haven't spoken to in a while, or you have thought, oh, maybe I should check in with X and have a chat, and just not even about anything, but just to check back in?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many people that fall by the wayside when life gets busy. So I think for me, whenever I get that instinct to catch up with someone, I send out 15 texts to people that I haven't spoken to for a while and just try and connect with a big wave of people.
You got to make sure though it's not on an iMessage.
Why?
Well, if they're only
group chat,
you send a you up text to 15 people.
It's not a copy and paste job.
Okay, got you. Yeah.
No, it's a specific to that person text. But
yeah,
and that often it might not reconnect strongly with all those people, but you end up connecting properly with 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
So I recommend that one, because that one, it's great to connect back with people you haven't spoken to.
Yeah. For me, I reckon more recently I reconnected with an old mate through running. Yeah, which I found it's easy to say to an old mate, hey, let's grab a beer one time, or let's go get a coffee. And you find that your conversations just keep turning into that, and you say, yeah, let's catch up. But until you actually plan something and do it, a lot of the time it just won't happen. So me and my old mate Chris, we just started running probably a few months ago.
It's great.
We'll just catch up like a few times a week, chew the fat, run, fit, healthy. It's really good.
It's really good.
Those are good relationships to have.
Yeah.
You know, ones it's actually, and you guys are great because you're thinking about other people. I'm actually just thinking about well, it sort of started as a internal thought, but it's actually made me then think more external with this. But I've found even like I'm so lucky to be working with you guys every day. I hang around friends every day, so I don't feel like I'm, lonely or anything at all. It's probably not the right word. I don't feel like I'm detached from too much of my life, but I do know that becoming a dad has been an extremely incredible thing, but also it is such a life-changing thing as well. Like, I sort of see my mates just continuing on with their lives, which is beautiful. I don't wish to be a part of that at all, and I'm not happy. I'm happy that I've changed, but also there is a part where you've just got different things that you're doing now. And like, my mates where I'd be going out for a beer with them on Saturday, it's like, I can't do that anymore, or I can't do it as often. And I think what happens with that is you're really thinking about it, as in like I'm thinking about that, and I want my mates to know that I care about them, but I feel like sometimes they might think, oh, he's just, we won't call him anymore because he's too busy or these sort of things. So I just don't feel like it's nothing that they're doing, but I don't feel like I'm getting involved as much because I haven't been doing as much, which is hard. So it's actually made me think more about like, okay, who's a young dad out there that maybe has actually been feeling like this as well? I've got to connect with them and see if they're okay. Because I know that if I didn't have this workplace, it actually probably would be challenging.
Yeah, definitely.
That'd be so common as well. And then you probably feel for people that might not have that relationship at work.
100%.
And they have something new come to their life, whether it's a kid or whatever, and then they lose that connection and then they can't get that at their job.
Yeah, I completely agree because I know how challenging it has been just to balance friends and family and stuff, and you're always going to put your family first, and that's what you want to do. But there is a part of it that, with guys, sometimes when you don't say anything, you don't acknowledge those things, you can fester into other parts of like, oh, he doesn't want to hang out with us anymore. It's like, well, no, that's actually not the case. I do. So anyway, promoting those conversations. I think that a lot of people, to be honest, will actually understand that, especially young dads, or maybe mates that have got mates that have young dads. It's always worth reaching out, and the flexibility isn't as hard. But yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting to guys about that actually.
Yeah, it's not hard to understand. Like your priorities change, and things that were absolutely a priority, like certain people. Like you've got to start choosing between Max and other really important people. It's like how you've got to choose Max.
Yeah, and just by the way, like in my situation, I'm very, very I think I'm at the 1% end of like how lucky I am with this. I work with mates. I've got the best wife in the world who lets me do whatever I want, and I still feel somewhat detached from people. So I think it can be an extremely isolating thing.
That's why you got to check in.
You got to check in. That's why it's important to do so. So I'm making sure that that's sort of my one as well. And throughout this, guys, we'll be continually chatting, and we'll update you guys on what's been happening. You tell us how Chris is going. You tell me how the big the big 15, the big 15, the big 15 group message.
I don't have 15 mates.
Yeah, and I'll tell you about reaching out to people and seeing how they're going. But yeah, really pumped to chat to Matt because actually he's been through similar situations as well, and really excited for this series too.
Let's get into it.
Well, let's get into it. Matthew, my good friend, welcome back to Dyl Friends. It is an absolute honour and pleasure and privilege to have you back on the show, brother.
Dylan, great to see you, mate. Shame it's not in person, but always good to see your face.
Mate, I called you this morning. I thought I'd actually gotten better on this in reflection, but I think my life is chaotic as ever, and things, some things are good, some things are bad. I think since last time we spoke, not to get into it too quickly, but I think I've really realised that our biggest strengths are also our biggest weaknesses, and the fact that I book a flight that morning, unorganised but very keen to get there, and then also miss that flight whilst I'm at the airport. The two go hand in hand, and I do apologise. There was no other flights to get back up to Sydney, but hey, we're back, and we did it last time via Zoom, and we're back today.
That's it, mate. Just leaves a future episode open again for an in-person one, but you're adaptable, and here we are. Let's go.
It's actually a good one, mate, because in my mindset in that moment, like I was very disappointed in myself and the airline for like not helping me out there. But I went straight away to like, what would Matt de Boer do in this situation? The first thing I thought about was he would negotiate to like get the plane turned around and then get him back on it. And I was like, I'm not that good. I can't do that. And the second point was he'd pivot. He wouldn't let anything get in his way, and he'd make it happen. He'd do a good job no matter what. So it was actually a really good little win for me, to be honest. I'm happy that we're doing this today, and I think, mate, I needed a little bit of Matt de Boer in my life.
No, don't give me too much credit, mate. That's all you and your evolution, I'm sure. But yeah, control the controllables is a big one, obviously, and wasted energy otherwise. So focus on the next moment.
Just so you know, episode 96, so 1st of June 2021 was the last time we had this podcast. That's 1,133 days from release to release. So a lot's happened in that time, both in my life and in your life. We did it in the midst of COVID as well. So I remember sitting at home, wasn't allowed outside of the house. And in all seriousness, and I have said this to you personally, but I do want to say it again, one of the most requested episodes to get you back on the show. And I genuinely think that episode actually really helped a lot of people, myself included, throughout that time on some of the things that, you shared about your life, that we got to. And a lot of people really did sort of relate to a lot of those ideologies that you spoke about. One being obviously the most famous player A, player B, which I absolutely butchered on reflection. I actually listened back to that and I just completely fucked that. But again, you move on, you pivot, and things happen. But mate, what's your reflections on the show? What was, even for you, did people come up to you and sort of chat about it after you'd been on that first episode? It really did take, especially the footy world by storm, but still to this day, people message me.
Yeah, got a lot of people messaging me on Instagram, which was great, and a few people asking to catch up and those sort of things. So was able to do a couple of those. Interestingly, later that year, we were still wearing masks. As you'll probably remember, I was in Melbourne. I was actually wearing your jumper, I believe, or T-shirt, and just a lady said to me, "Oh, Dyl Friends, I was just listening to one of those episodes, the Matt de Boer one," and I had my mask on. I said, "Oh yeah, was it any good?" She goes, "Nah, not really." So
no, that's not.
Clearly, not all listeners enjoyed it, mate. But yeah, no, I did get a lot of messages and a lot of love. So, congratulations to you on what you're building, though, mate, and the platform you've built to hopefully, give people some takeaways as they go about their life.
Definitely, mate. And as I said, the reason we've been wanting to do this series for a long time is catch up with old friends, check back in, and it's one of those things as well. Once you do sort of, obviously, teammates, close mates, but you do have those relationships whereby you still remain friends and remain involved in each other's lives in different bits and pieces. But those relationships do shift because you're doing different things, different spots, different states. But I think the respect for me and the admiration from me for you has been there the whole time, and absolutely love to see what you're doing, and a lot has happened since. Obviously, retirement, we'll talk about today, both becoming fathers. Athletic Ventures was only just beginning when we first chatted all that time ago. And then obviously dominating in so many other spaces in the world, being the youngest member ever to join the AFL Commission, which is genuinely incredible. So really keen to chat through all of that today. But I do want to say, Matty, one thing that sort of was off the top that we spoke about in last episode was the reason why you loved the new business world that you were sort of venturing into, and now that you're there. And you said that there was a part that really stood out to me, by listening back, was the transferable skills, I suppose, between footy and business world. And you said the reason that you really enjoyed that was because no career is linear, and especially in business and in footy, you have setbacks along the way, you have good times, you have bad times, you have injuries, you have things in business that aren't going the way you want. So I suppose as a first question would be, what has your graph looked like since that period? Like, what have been obviously some of the ups that I've just spoken about then, but how has it been for you in terms of that lineation over the last sort of little time period?
Yeah, it's a really good one, and can unpack that in multiple ways. I think, I guess just firstly, and to call out, and it's a bit of a boring statement, but hey, talking about myself and those sort of things, but that's boring. So I'll try to dial it up a little bit for the listeners to make it slightly more interesting. But I guess one of my mentors also talks about sometimes you don't know where you're at on your graph, let's call it, and you actually are compounding away and you are getting better. And he said he often sees people give up too early in business, and they might have been a year away or a week away or a month away from hitting that tipping point and really unlocking that next level of growth because they didn't quite know where they were at. And if you do, sometimes you'll obviously persist and keep going. And that could be on a game plan in footy, could be in a business, could be otherwise. And obviously you need feedback and data points along the way to see is what you're doing working. But really, it is hard to know where you're at sometimes. So the importance of data, whether it's from your financial statements or from people or feedback or customer love or whatever it might be, I think that's really important. I guess for me, on a life trajectory point of view, like it's just changed materially with becoming a father. So retired and then was 6 months away from being a dad, and I was just absolutely stoked about that. And my beautiful wife Rachel has just been the most amazing mum, as Juz has been, I'm sure, as well, and just love seeing that growth. So I think from a life point of view, like I'm still just moving forward incrementally for sure. The business had some wins recently and continuing to grow in that regard. So we now have, I guess, over 300 athletes as members of Athletic Ventures, and that tends to grow. Matthew de came on as a business partner, and he's just an absolute awesome human being, but humble, hardworking, and really adds value to that. We've bolstered the team, and I'm really pumped and love our elite team that we've got now, from Kathleen, Alex, Ash, our key investment advisors in Justin Lippman, Ed Cowan, Nick Crocker. We get some other help from Dixon White and Luke Bucari and some other people I might be leaving out. But I'm just really loving working with A players. So I couldn't plot it for you as such, but feels like we're having some wins and we're moving along nicely.
Pretty cool, isn't it? Like, you look back at that period when we spoke about you were still playing AFL football. I don't think, off the top of my head, you had any employees besides yourself sort of bootstrapping that business, and you look back now, you've named about sort of 10 to 15 people that are sort of stakeholders there. So it's pretty crazy. Like, I was actually chatting to a mutual friend of ours the other day, Ali Tarai, who's been on my podcast. I know he's a friend of yours, but a really, really good friend of mine, and he's probably been someone in that sense that you referred to earlier about you don't really know. It's really hard to actually get a gauge of how you're going, especially when you're an athlete, when you're running your own business especially. I think when you're in the workforce, from all reports, you do have people, if you've got good managers and mentors around you, you are getting some feedback about where you're at. But when you are doing your own thing, I've genuinely found it so fucking hard to know where I'm at. And like, I think when you've got that sort of mindset of like continually pushing, you're like, am I fucking actually getting anywhere? Like, am I getting anywhere? And he gave me some really, Ali, gave me some really good advice yesterday. He goes, mate, you cannot measure your impact in weeks and months. You have to look back at the last 12 months. You have to look back at a sample size of what's actually happened over a period of time. And it's actually got me in a really good look at things, because when I think we're in a world now where if we want to eat something, we order off Uber Eats, or if we want to look at videos, we go on TikTok, and if we want success, we want it the next day. And I think some things just aren't like that, and there's a good reason they're not like that. So for me, it's been a really big lesson in just stepping back a little bit and getting out of my own fucking rut that I'm in and looking at it over an actual period of time where it's actually been sort of, it has been growing and things actually have gone well. Yes, there's been some fuck-ups, but overall, there has been an improvement over that sort of 12-month period.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it's about the product. It's about the customer love. That's what we really look for in the companies that we invest in. And our game in particular is a long-term game. Like, we want to see that compounding occur. Fundamentally, we're backing, weapon founders with unique skills or insights to do that. They got, well supported at board level. But more often than not, they're unprofitable businesses that are trying to grow a disruptive or innovative product, and over time, we'll move to that profitable nature. So it's a long-term game, so you don't always know, but you do look for key insights throughout that journey via quarterly updates, material updates. But that customer love, I think, if you come back to you adding value to people in some way, then that will be enduring.
Hey, for the listeners out there, and even myself as well, you're an incredible team player. You've got great leadership, as we've established through the podcast, but also knowing you as a person. And one thing, I've actually been banned from nearly talking about this, and I regret bringing it up, but also I'm sort of halfway through it now, so I can't not. We use this analogy a lot, like who do you go to war with? And that's, for out there, I'm just going to use that. People know what it is. It's obviously you pick those people. And for you, it's like you're always one of those teammates in footy that, I'd refer to as one of those guys. So for you now, on the other hand of that, working in business and in sport, what are key characteristics that you've probably seen of young entrepreneurs or people that are driven to get into the workforce? What are the similarities of athletes and people that you've seen or you admire, or even some people that have really impressed you in the last sort of 12 months that, getting into that space?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think there's a variety of ways and different attributes you see in different people. But I think the key ones you look for is like some level of obsession, and whether it's an athlete or the business that they're building, like they are thinking about it, day and night. They are trying to always incrementally improve, but also they have this belief in themselves in what they're doing, and they're sort of like a force, and it's like, get out of my way, I'm going to do this thing. And you almost sort of gravitate towards these types of people that they're going to do it. So, you could talk about, Josh Kelly, who's obsessed with, his recovery and elite performance, and we've seen that. And then you talk about some of the founders that we back and build, and yourself included. They're always thinking, they're always improving, they're always trying to incrementally get better or themselves as an operator, with their time, efficiency, but also their product, their service, and that incremental innovation that's compounding away. I think you blink after years, and it's no surprise that they're incredibly successful people. People talk about these overnight successes, but you go back and look at the hard work that's put in. And you talk about Josh Kelly, once again, on his day off, he's doing the Pilates, he's doing the extra recovery, etc. You see this smooth moving operator that everyone talks about. We see that behind the scenes. So it's these business entrepreneurs that are not wasting time on things that they can't control and getting to work on what they can control are the ones that ultimately within their time frame can be successful.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, while we're on the topic of Josh Kelly, obviously being the number one guest on the show, he was the first guy that we ever had on the podcast, and I asked him to come back on through this little series where we're going back and talking to some of our OGs and those stories. And he said to me, nothing's really changed in my life. I was like, man, I just don't think that's true. I think that he's a very private person that doesn't sort of, a lot like yourself, doesn't really enjoy speaking about themselves. But to see what he's been able to sort of do in his life and everything else, I'm sure there's so many changes. And even someone listening there today, they might be thinking about their same thing, because by doing this, Dutch probably should have made you aware, is to promote people, and especially young men listening to the show, to check back in with mates. I think it's one of those things that, it doesn't have to be a serious chat. It can just be a coffee, anything like that. It's one of those things where I feel like I've identified, even my own journey, if sometimes you can be thinking about each other, but if you don't just send that message or do that thing, you can fester it into your own mind thinking, fuck, does this bloke even like me anymore? And it's so simple to get into that sort of not victim mentality, but that sort of, it's all about me. It's like, mate, we all have things going on. People love it when you reach out and catch up, and it can be super easy if you just get out there and reach out and try and sort of connect with people that you haven't before.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that changes a little bit with dad mode or parent mode, as you're probably experiencing as well, and your priorities shift a little bit. So yeah, you can never underestimate just that little text or that phone call to someone and to check in. So couldn't agree more. Even within broader WhatsApp groups, you think you're part of it, but just that individual touch point I think is critical. So always encourage everyone else to reach out to someone that they might not have in a while, or even just give them some positive feedback, because people aren't good at that sometimes. Everyone talks about giving feedback. You need to be critical. You need to give them their RFIs, their room for improvements, but also just tell someone when they did something great, or they did something that has stuck with you. I messaged someone recently who said something to me 10 years ago, and I just thought about it recently, and I just let them know, and they were chuffed that I'd remembered that. But you take these lessons with you from people, so letting them know that it's made an impact, I think is really important.
Yeah, it's an awesome point, mate. We'll get to that a little bit later on when we give some credit to people that have probably helped us over the last couple of years. Hey, to go forward, retirement. I don't want to gloss over that, because obviously an incredible career across two teams, someone who got the absolute most out of himself. We spoke about that analogy of player A versus player B, and how much people resonated with that listening to the podcast last time. Firstly, I'd love to just, if possible, you could give a little bit of a recap of player A and player B, and where you think that fitted in towards the end of your career. And then secondly, how was the end of your career? I know out of every person I've sort of spoken to and every player, you were nearly best, from an outside perspective, I suppose, you were best suited to that transition and be ready. But at the end of the day, it's a big part of who you are. A lot of your identity is wrapped up in one role. So yeah, my question to you is, like, how actually was that for you when push came to shove of wrapping up one career and heading to the next?
Yeah, I think the player A, player B, just to make sure you understand it properly this time, mate. But
yeah, it's actually more for me, to be honest.
As a quick recap, I told the story of a player A and a player B, and a player A was someone who sounded really successful, and a player B sounded like someone who wasn't successful, and they were both me, just telling my story in a different way or a different context. And some people might describe me as player B, but I like to think my teammates and most importantly myself, I define myself as player A, as that hardworking, great teammate, person who is continually getting better as part of that, and could add value through multiple ways. I think towards the end of my career, I felt like I wasn't getting better. So not to say I wasn't transitioning to my player B, but probably just knew that my time had come. The body was starting to slow down a little bit as well, and the weapons that were coming through, I didn't want to tag them anymore as well. So yeah, was really looking forward to that next phase of life, to be honest, because Rachel was pregnant and I knew I was going to be a dad, so I was absolutely pumped about that. The business started to grow nicely enough to transition into as well. And then, yeah, really just had a break from footy for sort of 12 months, but really just enjoyed being a fan again. Obviously had lots of friends still playing, particularly at the Giants and the Dockers, as well as lots of investors now around the league. So I just enjoyed watching them as a fan. And then pretty quickly soon after, the opportunity came up to join the AFL Commission. So, yeah, put my hand up for that and went through the interview process and ultimately got appointed. And so, yeah, still very much involved with the great game of AFL and, yeah, really enjoying life as it is now. You know, I'd be lying to say you don't miss out on certain parts of being an AFL player and the locker room and the success and the mateship and all of that, but feel like I've somewhat replicated that in another way, albeit, you know, there's no better feeling than after a great win when you're exhausted and victorious, recapping with your teammates. Yeah, what about you with your transition and you know, a few years on now, how do you sort of reflect on it?
Yeah, well, I think I can relate mine to probably, it was a little bit different to yours in the sense that there wasn't a lot you know, probably keeping me in the system. But I think for me, it got to that stage where it was completely ready, and I probably spoke about that a fair bit. But I think one thing that I haven't really spoken about, and something that I actually really resonated with you, and something you've said on actually a mutual friend of ours, Tommy Sheridan's podcast recently. I was listening to that, and something that was really cool. And I think it actually might have been from Ed Cowan, who someone that you've worked really closely with, gave you this advice, which I wish I had, is And again, when people are listening to this, don't just think footballers transitioning to other careers. Think, you know, yourself in your other job that you're doing at the moment, and a career shift that you want to do in the next phase is the mountain analogy. Again, your analogies and my brain don't flow completely well. So I was thinking maybe you could give us another one on that. But I really resonated with what you were saying in the sense of once you've climbed one, you can't just, you know, go across. You've got to actually go down again and start again.
Yeah, essentially that. So in sport, you know, it's a mountain, you're obsessed with it, you're trying to get better, you're trying to get up to the top, you're always trying to pursue that one. And then, you know, with sport, and I guess just on my retirement as well, quickly throughout this, it's like, you know, it sounds a bit morbid and a bit intense, but like you've died from that sport. But what you do get is all these great messages from people of either the impact you had on them as a teammate, or so it's like you're at your funeral, but you actually get to hear what they say, which is actually really nice. So I actually really enjoyed that process as part of it. But in terms of this new career, new life, and depending on your aspirations and your ambitions and what you want to achieve, there is a new mountain, and it's arguably a steeper climb than what the first one might have been. And Ed uses the analogy, you don't get to hang glide from, you know, the middle or the top or close to the top of your first one across. So I think that's really key to understand that, and that's okay. Like, you do have to go back down to the bottom. You don't have to look for some quick win, but it's like, what's the mountain you want to attack? And, you know, is that going to be achieving of your, is it going to help you achieve your goals in a longer term? Is it a mountain worth attacking, etc.? Find your right mountain and get after it. And I like to build on Ed's analogy by saying, the tools that you've got from your first mountain, these maybe softer skills, because, you know, you're not playing footy in the office as such, but your leadership, your resilience, your teamwork, like all these things are incredibly valuable. And that's changing any job or transitioning from any job. Like, never underestimate the skills or the that you've learnt from that one pursuit onto the next one. And I guess just lastly is that climbing party. So like in sport, you've got this climbing party, whether it's your teammates, whether it's your mentors, whether it's people you've met throughout your time as a footballer. In this example for me, if you're a good person and you're there for them and it's a relationship, they'll be there for you as you attack this new mountain. And I've really found that and incredibly grateful for those people who have stayed there, because I've built a genuine relationship with them, try to add value back to them, but largely they're helping me up my mountain now, and I'm loving the climb, to be honest, and get lots of energy from it.
The reason I asked that question as well, and I love talking about this stuff, is I feel that as a byproduct of this show, it was never the mission to, I suppose, like share those stories and those those pivots of life. But I think for me, one of the most rewarding things is when I do hear from people that have been in one career and maybe that isn't serving them anymore, and then they've listened to a certain show or an episode where they have heard about these pivots and can relate it to their own life. And I think that for me is actually probably one of the most rewarding things out of having these conversations, and not just, I suppose, being able to humanise the conversations of not just footballers or athletes can do this. Like, anyone can do this if you're willing to, as you said, climb a mountain again, but well and truly know that there is so many transferable skills, and it's not going to be comfortable the whole time. Like, it is going to be fucking hard. It's going to be embarrassing. It's going to be awkward. If I look back to that little transition period of mine myself, like, there is so many times where you just fucking cringe at what you're doing, but inevitably, there's no growth without those awkward situations, and you got to get comfortable without being get comfortable being uncomfortable.
No, I love it. And I think with athletes in particular, just on that, that anxiety towards transition is very real. Not for all, but for some. For, I would say, most, to be honest. And having thought about it a fair bit recently, like I think, like, let's take a step back and go, how did you get good at your sport? And like, as a kid, you tried lots of different sports, footy, basketball, athletics, like whatever it might be. And you probably lent into the one that you were good at and that you liked. And you probably liked it because you were good at it. And then you started to compound away at that because of the training you did, the coaching you got, the enjoyment you got, and like blink and then you're playing in some professional state. So let's take that theory to this new career, new mountain that you're going to have to tackle. It's like, let's explore lots of different knowledge areas. And for me, I studied plenty, but then did some work placements at different, I was on the Westpac trading floor and that wasn't for me. It was, commercial property, that wasn't for me, and just love startups, love venture capital. So then you start to, I did some work placements in that, got some mentors in that, which is like training and the coaching component of your sporting analogy. So once you find what you like and what you think you're good at, like, start doubling down on that would be my just general advice. But like, never underestimating the skills you're learning in whatever pursuit you're doing, because more often than not, they're extremely transferable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think last time as well we spoke about a similar thing, and again, different stories, and super keen to sort of dive back into it now, because we spoke a lot about buckets and where we put our energy, and I think now is a really cool time, and I'm sure you've reflected on this, but I'm wondering how it's all looking, because you used to have footy family, friends, and as a part of that I really enjoyed that you said, and I actually listened back to this today, which is why I'm keen to listen to it, was continual learning. And you sort of said that those were like the 4 or 5 things that made you the best person possible. So if you weren't getting that mix of spending time with friends, family, putting energy into footy and continually learning, you weren't in the best place. And before I get to the question, the reason I ask, and I didn't actually remember that from the last time that we spoke, but I found it eerily similar, because I've been doing a bit of work probably in this last, 1,133 days with my mate Ali, who's your mate, and sort of developing my own values and working out like what my 4 things are that I need to sort of be doing to be at my best. And those weren't necessarily footy, friends, family, those bits and pieces, but they were moments. So I want to create like as many memorable moments as I can each year. So it's like those things where you look back in your phone and you find those photos that were moments. It could be going on a golf trip, it could be going on a family holiday, it could be spare of the moment, booking a trip to the Paris Olympics, which I'm deeply considering at the moment.
Awesome.
It's environment. It's like who you spend your time with. Is it at your workplace, at home? Is it clean? Is it organised? Is it all those things? Freedom. So like just having the choice to, work from home today. And I'm fully aware that some people can't do this, but this is what's really important to me. Am I able to take some time off, or am I able to actually stay at work and do what I want to do? And then that last one, which is really eerily similar to yours, is growth. And I don't know if this is something that's common with a lot of people, but I feel like maybe it is is continually putting yourself in uncomfortable situations to learn something new. And I think I did find myself in a little bit of maybe a rut in the last 6 months, because I feel like I've probably done the first 3, but I feel like maybe I've taken a back step on the growth part and putting myself a bit more under pressure and actually learning new things. And it's weird because the more uncomfortable I am, it's almost like the more comfortable I actually feel sometimes.
Yeah, that's great, and thanks for sharing. I think it's a worthwhile exercise for everyone to definitely sharpen that up. I think sometimes with what you're doing, it can tick a few boxes as well. Like you're interviewing, people all day, every day who have different lenses on issues, and you can learn through as part of that. So for me personally, with what we're doing at Athletic Ventures, in trying to get a seat at the table for the everyday athlete and back championship founders. I'm learning every day through different businesses, through different sectors, from our team in general, but our investment advisors and everything as part of that. So like constantly learning every day. And I guess until that ceases to be true, then I'll look for, potential other growth areas as part of that. But, with the business being such a big focus now, as well as being a dad and all of that, I've shifted some of my priorities into what I'd consider like a work-life prioritization as opposed to balance. Like I'll target balance for sure in the future, but at the moment, like being a dad, supporting Rach, as well as like growing the business are probably my priorities. But yeah, very like aware and mindful of my key friends, that I never want to let that dip, and trying to maintain a healthy lifestyle as much as possible, but really excited by the opportunity that we've got here in the business, but also, like just loving spending time with my son as well, and obviously giving Rach a bit of a chop out here and there.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I don't know if you relate to this at all, but there was a video. I get most of my growth at the moment from TikTok when I see cool videos that inspire me, which, it used to be a joke, but I'm actually genuinely serious now. Like sometimes there are those little paradigm shifts when you actually watch a fucking video and you're like, you know what, that is actually a winner. And it was really cool because I think I've been guilty maybe on this podcast of talking about growth and about balance, life balance. And for me, whether that's going home or coming to work and being too obsessed with one or the other. And it was actually saw this really cool video the other day, which I'll send you after this and I'll actually play it. Maybe I'll pop it in here now.
Yeah.
The best work-life balance for the ultra-ambitious is like a pendulum. It's not about finding balance. It's about swinging back and forth between extremes. Hustle, burn the candle at both ends, push yourself to your limits. Then rest, recharge, find your inner peace, and spend time with loved ones. These two extremes might be separated by weeks or even months. The seasons of life for ultra-ambitious people don't allow for the traditional concept of work-life balance. The pendulum swings to one extreme, then the other. Mr. Beast's advice was simple. Work crazy hours when you feel like it, but then recharge.
So yeah, that basically explains the analogy of there is no such thing as balance. It's more about the modern day term of how some people like to work, and I really relate to this, is like when you're ready to work, you know what? Work. Empty out. There's no time on it. If you want to stay back late and you want to do it, don't just leave home and then spend the time with the family and still be thinking about it. It's like nearly work your ass off until you burn out in that sense. Then go home, spend your time, recover, get your reps in with your family, do the things that you need to do. And obviously there comes a lot of communication with that, and I'm not going to explain it as good as the video did, but it just shows maybe a different way of actually being able to manage your time as much as, you can't be two places at once. If you're at work, be at work. If you're at home, then be at home.
Yeah, I love that. And it's a good reminder because you can get caught up when you get to home, still thinking about work, and probably vice versa. So I think, protecting that time is incredibly important. And the phone comes into that. I hear good strategies around people that would just go plug their phone in next to their bed so they don't have the temptation to do that. So yeah, I think it's really important. And whilst I acknowledge I'm not perfect, trying to get better always.
We're speaking about it now, but obviously I'm going to read out a few things that you're doing, and I'm sure there's more that I know of, right? But becoming a father, I'm imagining you're still focusing on being physically fit and mentally fit. You got a relationship with your wife. You got a relationship with your son. You're running Athletic Ventures. You're on the AFL Commission, which we'll talk about shortly. I'm sure you're still trying to connect in with friends and family. I'm sure you're trying to book family holidays. I'm sure you're trying to get ahead in life and make smart investments. As a person at the moment, and I know a lot of people out there can relate to all those things in their life, how do you think you are managing those things? And maybe is there anything in your weeks at the moment that you do to help stay on top of these things? Or is it even just giving yourself grace that you can't tick all those boxes?
I think it's definitely grace on some of it. Like I said, work-life prioritization. I'm a big believer in using your calendar and blocking things in there. Like having hired the team has been, game-changing, and sometimes you struggle to let go. But, we've got impressive people in certain roles now where, you can, I guess, trust that they'll get the job done because they are elite. Always trying to strike the balance there, but there's some things that are just non-negotiables. I think you start with those, which is being a present father and husband and family support there, because if that was to fall away, that would be the most detrimental part of my life. And then we've got real ownership and responsibility to our investors as well, and supporting the companies that we back. So that'd be the next one, and trying to get better at, I guess, a more disciplined routine with fitness and health now, definitely. Still eating well and those sort of things. I've really been enjoying social sport into retirement, so playing a bit of, AFL 9s or a bit of social hoops, a bit of squash and those sort of things, going for the run, getting to the gym. And then, very fortunate. I've got just a key and core group of mates who we touch base with regularly, who, the types, mate, they keep you pretty grounded as well.
Do you do anything for yourself personally in that, maybe that physical and mental space, that's like a weekly non-negotiable for yourself, or something that you're even trying to build in at the moment? Like, I'm always really intrigued to listen to really successful people like yourself, if there's something that you do that keeps you sort of accountable each week.
Let's pick this up in 6 months, because I think by then I definitely will. But at the moment, like I said, the work-life prioritization, you mentioned those things that I'm doing before. Like, I get so much energy from all of those, and I just constantly, stimulated by all of that and loving all those sort of things. So I'm just diving right into that. Like, I'm, really big on sleep still, which, as you know, with the little one can be unpredictable at times, but trying to protect the sleep, I think, is the most important one from there, and eating really healthy and staying hydrated.
Yeah, it's a great answer. One thing for me, if I'm just reflecting on myself, if you are interested,
mate,
I was actually just thinking, like, this year's probably been the least I've ever drank, and not because, like, probably two parts. One being just enjoy, like, I'm just not craving it as much. I'm not sure if that's just anything because maybe busyness of life or things going on. But then the other option, the other sort of part of that too, is I just know how much, without like good sleep, nutrition and alcohol does affect me. Like, I actually had a couple of beers on the weekend for the first time in a long time, and just really did struggle to sort of get through my, I love Sundays, so like have them to set up for my week ahead, and I just, again, put me on the back foot, like sort of heading into that week. Like, I know life's incredibly fun. I love what I'm doing, and you've got to let your hair down sometimes, but I think it's just knowing the consequences of your actions before you're doing them. And I sort of went in going, look, you know what? I'm not actually going to be probably in a good space tomorrow, so I'm not going to be able to do that. But I don't want to let that ruin my week sort of heading forward.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think wearing the Aura ring or tracking your sleep, whenever you do have a couple of beers or otherwise, like, you can just see through your heart rate data that your body's under stress, and it just impacts you from there. So I enjoy heaps normal, the non-alcoholic beer, and that's been great for me as part of that. But I would agree that, I've never drunk less.
Dutchman, last time we spoke about an incredible story, you put a man in jail. I'm not sure if he's still incarcerated. Poor bloke just stole your bike, I think, out of your car, was it?
Garage.
So he did enter the premises,
and wallet.
Which again is not, and wallet. He did enter the premises, and do you know, is there any updates on him? Is he still away?
We don't speak, so I'm not too sure. He could be back in. I'm not sure, but his sentence is up. I haven't made any citizens arrests since then, but I'm always aware and looking to do it again. So hopefully no activity near me.
That's one of Josh Kelly's favourite stories of all time. And chatting to him before sort of coming into this podcast, I said, have you got any new Dutchy sort of stories that have picked up of late? Has he made any citizens arrests? Has he turned around a flight after missing it, these sort of things? Is there anything sort of popping up? He did refer to maybe some some issues with the front of your house and getting a park at certain times?
Oh, yeah. Yep. So, in Sydney, Dyl, it's hard to get a parking spot sometimes. So we had one which Rach got. And so, don't want her walking the street. So it was up to me to get lucky on the street. And right out the front of our house, there was clearly room for 4 cars. Like, you could tell to the eye there's room for 4. But with the way people park, it was always like 3. And it was just like selfish parking. It infuriated me because I'd come home and not be able to park out the front. I had to, try around the corner or, end up being a fair walk. So I was like, I'm going to write a note. I'm going to, try and educate these people. And I thought, no, there's a better way. There's a better way to do this. And so I went and bought fluoro masking tape. And Rach is just like, what are you doing? I waited for it to be dark, and then I went out there and measured out what would be 4 parking bay equivalents, and I made them with this fluoro masking tape. Sure enough, you come back the next day, there's 3 cars parked beautifully in their spots, and I took the 4th one, and and away we go. So people are hungry to be led, mate. You just need to show them sometimes.
That's unbelievable. Was it sprayed down, or is it still there, the tape?
I should go back and check. I don't think it would be, but I'm not too fast. I got my spot and I was happy. Save the legs, mate, while you're playing footy.
So good. Mate, the AFL Commission, talk us through this. This is pretty incredible to be completely honest. I don't actually fully understand what it is and what you're doing, but the youngest member to be added into that ever speaks volumes of your character and what you've been able to do. What was the process like? Who sort of reached out to see if you wanted to be involved, and what are you sort of, I know you can't speak to specifics of what you're actually doing, but what sort of stuff are you talking about in that role?
Yeah, I guess to speak generally, it's like the board of a company. So you're dealing with all sorts of decisions. It's a huge responsibility. You're obviously trying to, grow and maximise the game and represent the stakeholders from clubs to fans to volunteers as part of, game development, the growth of W. And everything is part of that. So it's a huge responsibility, really enjoying it. There's some elite people around the table. Well, they all are elite around the table that all bring diverse skills and expertise, just like any board. And I guess mine is that I was a recent player and was able to do that, and was appointed with Andrew Ireland, who's a ex-player but also ex-administrator, and brings, an elite level of insight there. So, yeah, really trying to bring a contemporary player's view to key decisions as we continually try to grow the game as best we can.
Bloody awesome. No, it's so cool. And as on a personal level too, like being surrounded with the men and women that are on that commission too, like has it been a cool learning experience? I know they're obviously learning a lot from yourself, but to be surrounded by other people that are at the top of their game must be pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. And it's amazing that you read the board pack and the papers and you come with a view, and then there'll be 10 different views, and it's great level of insight from everyone based off their expertise, experience, backgrounds, etc. And so, yeah, there's some robust discussion. Ultimately, we form a view and charge forward there. The execs as well as part of that. Once again, are elite operators, and the game's in really good shape, but we're always chasing better and optimization, and not dissimilar to any business, that we invest in as well. I've always got growth opportunities, and that's what's really exciting.
So cool, mate. And then with Athletic Ventures as well, obviously humming 300 athletes across Australia. Some of the investments, one other bit of sort of updates actually as well.
This is big.
1,133 days ago. I know everyone's been really wondering out of this show if I have been added into the WhatsApp group.
You are in.
I can say that I am in the WhatsApp group now. I actually am quite scared to sort of actually post anything in there. I just like a few comments here, there, and everywhere. But it's a big dog group. There's a lot of big dogs in there, and I haven't been mucking about.
Mate, you're at the top of that list. But yeah, no, it's pretty cool, pretty good community, obviously. Like any group, the larger it gets, sometimes the quieter it can get. So we do try to encourage education sharing and updates and everything as part of that, but also, communicate on email primarily. But yeah, excited what we're building there. Obviously, the investments are, long-term thinking as well. So we're really excited that we're actually working on an education product as well. So stay tuned for that, and some empowerment services for athletes to maximise their time in sport and to give them confidence towards transition as well. So we're using technology, we're using some key people in our networks to really add value to athletes. So anyone that wants to get better off field, off court, they can come to us and we'll be able to assist. So if that's of interest to anyone, jump into our Instagram at Athletic Ventures and slide into the DMs.
So, Dutch, just to be completely clear on that, is that for people that are at a professional level sport, or is it anyone in sport at all? Like, how can you access that education of that AV is sort of building at the moment? And then secondly, is that education on venture capital, is that to just sort of give a really good understanding, base model of like what that is, how to get involved and the steps necessary to sort of start investing?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we've built it with our athletes in mind. I guess having lived and been through that experience, we're trying to digitise a lot of the experiences that they could have in a micro-education way. So fundamentally, it's explaining holistic financial literacy. So we think angel investing and venture capital is really important as part of that, but everything from property to tax deductions to how to maximise social media and everything in between. So yeah, really just that holistic how to maximise your time in sport and give you empowerment towards transition. So started with athletes only, but if you're telling me there's a broader appetite for the Dyl Friends family, then that's something we can definitely entertain.
Watch this space. You might need a new inbox. That's going to absolutely blow up. Mate, we, as a part of this sort of series, I'd love to sort of chat to you about is, again, identifying, looking back, reflecting on the period, checking back in with old mates, but also giving full credit to the boys of who has sort of supported you along your journey over these past sort of 2 to 3 years. I'm sure there hasn't been one person, obviously your wife and mother of your beautiful son, Harry, has been incredibly important for yourself and giving a lot of credit to them. I'm assuming. I see you nodding your head.
Definitely.
And that's definitely a case. Is there anyone else that's been really influential for yourself that you'd love to give some credit to?
Yeah, I think we gave Nick Crocker a good mention last time. So yeah, obviously him and Ed Cowan we've touched on as well. He's just been life-changing. I guess the third one who I think I touched on, but is Justin Lippman from Equity Venture Partners. Like he's just been a phenomenal friend, mentor, advisor, confidant, someone who challenges me but supports me. And so yeah, he is sometimes referred to as the Jerry Maguire of the venture capital industry. So he gives a lot to so many people and may not get the credit that he deserves, but I think he will continue to in the years to come. He's a phenomenal investor, phenomenal friend, and yeah, couldn't be more grateful for him in my life.
To give context into someone that is obviously supporting you as well, what do you think is like a common theme that they do that makes them the person that they are? Like, is it their generosity? Is it the not just sort of giving you the answer, but giving you the motivation to then find the answer yourself? Is it it obviously takes two to tango there. You've got to be also really driven in that relationship to get the most out of it too. Like, what makes a great relationship in your eyes that's really fulfilling in that sense?
Yeah, I think trust. You've got to be able to trust, the things you're sharing with them and vice versa. Composure, like, he in particular just has elite stoicism, composure through any perceived difficulty or otherwise. And just a willingness to explore things together, but to celebrate, business and life moments as well. So yeah, I think those would probably be the three for me.
Love it, mate. Thank you so much for sharing. Hey, to finish up, I can't stop without a couple little tidbits towards the end. Now that you're finished and you're out of your AFL career, we can't help but ask a couple questions on reflection. I'm sure you stay out most nights and watch a lot of your highlights, as there was some there. There are many highlights there.
No, not too many.
Throughout your career, hardest opponent? Who would it be at the end of the day? You've played on a lot of good players.
Yeah. I think I shouted them out last time. Like Nathan Fyfe is just phenomenal, but then because of the personal relationship as well, like I just did not look forward to that encounter. Who else? Simon Black, Dusty, Dangerfield, Lockie Neal. These types are just phenomenal players that have so many weapons that they can tear a game apart in minutes, let alone over the course of a game. So probably those, to shout out a few, mate.
Easiest opponent, now that you're out there, you can throw some shade.
Tommy Sheridan, probably.
Yes, that's very easy. Dutchman, I cannot thank you enough for your time, my friend. I know how busy you are. You got so much on, and you're doing great things. And as a part of this, I just wanted to catch back in and check on you and see how it's all going, mate. But extremely proud to call you a friend. Love what you're doing at Athletic Ventures, and I know a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this chat as they did last time.
No, thank you, mate. I will finish on one that I'm pinching off an ex-Fremantle colleague that posted on LinkedIn, but I really enjoyed it. And he said people are always thinking about what's their fallback plan, what's their plan B, what's their safety net going to be. And I really liked how he addressed this. He said, you are your safety net, you are your plan B, you are your fallback plan, and you will be okay. So, you don't wrestle with those sort of things. It's like, you are powerful, you will sort it out. If you're hardworking, if you're learning, if you're getting better, you will be okay. So, love what you're doing, Dyl. Keep building, mate. It's been amazing to see from the sidelines. Pumped to be involved in a couple episodes now, and look forward to the one we do in person eventually.
No, you're a star, Dutch, man. Thanks so much. Can't wait to see what the next 1,133 days holds for you, my friends. So we'll touch base, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Good stuff. Big love, everyone.